A dangerous love triangle. A quiet life. Disrupted. Vivian was a young and beautiful student. She lived alone in a small house in Chicago. Her life was quiet, simple. She loved reading at night by her large window, feeling the cold air against her skin, and drinking coffee in the mornings, watching the city wake up. But everything changed when she met Robert. Robert was 35 years old. He was tall, strong, and charming. His deep voice carried confidence, and his eyes held secrets. He was married to Solange, a beautiful woman of 28. They lived very close to Vivian. Every morning she saw Robert leaving for work. He always smiled at her, a smile that lingered for a second too long. Soon, they started talking. One day, Robert invited Vivian for coffee. She hesitated. She knew he was married, but his voice was warm, persuasive. She accepted. They met in a small cafe near her house. Robert leaned forward as he spoke, his eyes locked on hers. He talked about his life, his work, and slowly, his marriage. He said he felt trapped, that something was missing. Vivian listened, feeling intrigued, excited. When they left, she felt a strange sensation, dangerous but irresistible. The forbidden affair. Days passed, and their meetings became more frequent. Robert told Vivian he was unhappy in his marriage. He said Solange did not understand him, that their passion had faded. Vivian felt special. She agreed to be his lover. Anew. First, everything was thrilling. Robert visited Vivian when Solange was not at home. He brought flowers, whispered sweet words, and made promises. They spent hours tangled in each other's arms, their laughter echoing in the quiet of her home. Vivian felt alive in a way she never had before, but as time went on, Vivian wanted more. She wanted Robert to choose. One night, as they lay together, she turned to him. "Robert, I can't do this anymore. You need to decide. Me or Solange?" Robert sighed, running his fingers through her hair. "Give me time, Vivian. I don't want to hurt anyone." Vivian's heart clenched. "You're already hurting her. And me." Suspicions arise. Vivian grew restless. Every time Robert left, a knot of jealousy tightened in her stomach. She pictured him returning to Solange, touching her the way he touched Vivian. She couldn't bear it. Meanwhile, Solange noticed changes in her husband. He was distant, distracted. He came home late, smelled of perfume, and sometimes ignored her calls. She felt something was wrong. One evening, as Robert left in his car, she decided to follow him. Her hands gripped the steering wheel as she watched him park near Vivian's house. She felt a sharp pain in her chest as she saw him walk to the door. Vivian opened it, smiling, welcoming him inside. Solange's breath caught. Her hands trembled as she waited in the darkness, her heart pounding like a war drum. An hour passed, then 2. When Robert finally left, Solange's vision blurred with unshed tears. But she wiped them away, squared her shoulders, and walked to the door. She knocked firmly. Vivian opened it and froze. "Solange, what are you doing here?" "The confrontation." Solange's voice was calm, but her eyes burned. "I know everything. You are with my husband." Vivian's throat went dry. She swallowed hard. "I love him. He said he loves me too." Solange tilted her head. "Then let's see if he tells the truth." The next day, Solange prepared a romantic dinner. Candles flickered on the table, casting soft shadows. Wine glasses gleamed under the dim light. When Robert came home, she greeted him with a smile. "Sit down, my love. We need to talk." Robert's stomach twisted. "What is this, Solange?" Then the doorbell rang. Solange got up, unhurried. She opened the door. Vivian walked in, her chin lifted, her gaze steady. Robert's face turned pale. His mouth opened, but no words came. "Sit down, Robert," Solange said, her voice silky and sharp. "It's time to be honest. The choice." Robert's mind spun. He never imagined they would confront him together. He had always thought he could control the situation, keep his two lives separate. But now, the walls were closing in. The women stared at him, waiting. Solange folded her arms. "You have a choice to make, right here, right now, me or her." Vivian's voice was low, firm. "No more lies, Robert." Robert looked at them both. His wife, the woman who had been by his side for years, who knew his past, his weaknesses, his strengths, and Vivian, the passionate young woman who had reignited his desire, made him feel alive again. His heart pounded, his breath came fast. The silence stretched. Solange's eyes narrowed. Vivian's fingers curled into fists. Finally, Robert exhaled sharply. He looked at Vivian, his expression filled with regret. "Vivian, I'm sorry, but my place is with my wife. I love Solange. I always have." Vivian's heart shattered, but deep down, she had expected this moment. She forced a sad smile. "I see. Then, this is goodbye." She turned away, holding back tears. That night, she packed her bags and booked a ticket to New York. A new city, a new life. It was time to start over. Solange watched Robert, searching his eyes. "Are you ready to fix this? To be the husband you promised to be?" Robert took her hands, squeezing them gently. "Yes, Solange, I am." And as Vivian's plane left Chicago behind, Robert and Solange stood together, ready to rebuild what had once been broken. Because in the end, true love always finds its way home. Fim.